Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. My name is Giridhari. And today I want to talk about know thyself. We hear this so many times and it is so important to know yourself, right? That's what we're doing here, self-realization. We have to know yourself. But how can we know ourselves? People don't usually tell us how to do it and what that really means. So I want to give you here in this video 3 paths for you to know yourself, 3 aspects of yourself you have to get to know, which will help you understand yourself as a whole. So let's get started. First of all, there's what I call the emotional self. So you have to understand your emotional self. Now this takes a little time, I'll tell you this, because when we're young, you have no idea who you are emotionally. Like when you're a teenager, everything's a big mess. When you're in your young, your 20s, still like your brain hasn't even finished forming yet, according to neuroscience. It gets very confusing. It does take a little time. So be a little patient. And of course, there are like 80-year-olds who don't know themselves emotionally, but it takes a little time. But your emotional self, the more energy you put into looking at your emotions, tracking your emotions. In the 3T path, we talk about the daily emotional cure, which means that every day you take some time off to do a little bit of introspection, the inner look, look inside yourself and see what's going on. Try to feel the emotions that are, that were important today. Maybe you got hurt today, because it's, we get hurt so easily. It's one message, even just a look can create emotional pain, things that happen, bad news, things that are stressing you out. So it's so important every day to, take this time off to look inside and track your emotional pain and then put some energy into curing those emotions. There are very nice techniques. I teach them in this channel. These are techniques proven by, psychology. They really work. So there are ways for you to deal with just manage your emotions and manage your emotional pain and cure your emotional pain. So the more once you've gotten into this lifestyle of, tracking your emotions, curing your emotions, seeing how you behave, observing your emotional response to things, then you start getting a hang of your traits and influences in this life. In yoga, we talk about Vasanas. You hear this technical term, samskaras and vasanas. Samskaras are subliminal registers which you store, and vasanas are those tendencies created by accumulated samskaras in a certain direction. And of course, the difference between yoga psychology and modern day psychology is that in yoga we say, look, this didn't start when you were born. This has been going on life after life. So that's why people are born with their own personalities. You have twins and they're like sometimes have very different personalities because we didn't start when we were born. We've been going on forever. So as you examine yourself, as you're observing yourself more and more, then you can see like what kind of vasanas, what kind of tendencies am I carrying in this life? And we all have, our crosses to bear. We all have our challenges. So, one person might be more, tendency for being mean or lazy or greedy or, bossy or whatever. Proud, feelings of inferiority, whatever. We all have like this whole mixture. And so the more you observe yourself, the more you get into the habit of, doing this observation. Observe your mind. Don't just go through life, focus on the outside. But look inside, observe your mind, track your emotions. Then you start developing a very clear picture of your emotional self. So that's the first thing. Second thing, very important, the dharmic self. Now this is not something you hear about in your regular, self-help stuff or in psychology. So your dharmic self, this is a very important aspect of Bhagavad Gita, of the path of yoga we're following. Now the dharmas are your purposes, are your nature, are the duties that are born of your nature, of who you are, where you are, what's going on, like everything about your nature now, you know, your abilities, your situation, your job, your age, like, you know, the things the responsibilities you accepted, your parent, you know, a parent or child, all those things create your dharmas. So in the 3T path and in Bhagavad Gita, there's a strong focus of Dharma. Understand and live your Dharma, be guided by your Dharmas. Now, to make that easier, in my work, I have I explained 7 dharmas, 7 categories of dharma. So it makes it easier for you to identify and keep this dharmic consciousness where you're focusing on your dharma. So I talk about 1, vocational dharma, where I explain that, you know, people are born with a certain vocation, you know, more intellectual, physical, athletic, artistic, you know, administrative, or like what is your, you know, vocational pull. You know, for example, mine is teaching. I love teaching. That's what I do. So that's my vocation, teaching. You know, happily I'm doing it here. So it doesn't mean you have to be good at it. It just means that that's what it is you do. You know, it doesn't mean like, oh, because you're doing your vocation, you're going to be so wonderful. No, that's a fallacy. You know, you might just be an athlete, but you're just not an Olympian. You're not a fantastic, but that's what you are. You work with the body. You're an athlete, so you can coach. You can be an athlete, and so yeah, that's what you do. So it doesn't mean you're great at it, but your vocational dharma. So that's one thing to look at. Second thing, I call you natural dharma, which means the focus on taking care of your health, on doing things that are good for your body, sleeping well, eating well, taking care, directing well your sexuality, those things. So that's your natural dharma. 3, occupational dharma. What is it that you work on? What's your job? I mean, are you just taking, you know, maybe it's taking care of your house. Maybe you have a job, whatever it is, even if it's not connected with your vocational dharma, but whatever that is, that's one of your dharmas. 4, your personal dharma, your relationships, you know, your role as mother, father, friend, son, daughter, grandchild, whatever. Those things are important. Those things generate duties which you have to perform. So your personal dharma. Then community dharma. Your role as member of your community. So how are you, you know, don't throw trash in the streets, you know, follow the laws, you know, be a helpful member, help your neighbor out, you know, vote well, you know, all those things makes your community and society better. Then universal dharma, those bigger concepts, you know, planetary concepts, worrying about ecology, worrying about peoples in different countries which you have never met. Worrying about people you have never met is a good explanation of, you know, people and things you don't have any contact with, you know, like the forest and the other side of the world. Worrying about these things, that's universal dharma. And last but certainly not least, the spiritual dharma, work in your spirituality, working on your self-realization. So these are the 7 categories of dharmas, and of course I go into deep detail in my courses and in my book, but just so you understand that as you develop a dharmic consciousness, you understand your dharmic self. It's very important to have this nice knowledge of because then your actions are motivated by your dharma, not by wishes, not by desires, not by laziness, not by fleeting arguments, but by purpose, by your true self, by being yourself. So that's the dharmic self. And last but certainly not least, your spiritual self. And that means you have to take advantage of, you know, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Purana, Yoga Sutras. You have to take advantage, or if you prefer, you know, other lineages, but you have to take advantage of spiritual knowledge, you know, these wonderful scriptures we have on the planet. Take shelter of wonderful gurus and teachers and learn about your spiritual self. Who are you? What are you truly made of? You know, who am I? This eternal question. So, like, ask yourself, like, you know, am I a soul? Have I been transmigrating or not? And who is God? So you have to know yourself spiritually, and all this information is very nicely explained in Bhagavad Gita, for example, so you can get access to this stuff. So, understand your spiritual self, the true, the ultimate, knowledge of yourself, of who you truly are beyond this lifetime, beyond all lifetimes, beyond this universe. So that's it. Those are the three ways you can work on constantly. This doesn't stop. This is something you keep developing, day by day. You're working on these things every day. And once you do that, I've been doing that for decades, and it's wonderful. Then you really get a feel of who you are. You understand the movements of your mind, what you have to do. It gives you all this wonderful clarity of vision and direction in life. And you don't get confused, and you understand how you're reacting to situations that happen to you. Because I know I'm like that, so I'm going to react like that, so I'll be okay. I know that I react this way in this situation, in that way in that situation. So you know yourself enough so that you don't, you deal well with the things that happen to you. So again, it's your emotional self, your dharmic self, and your spiritual self. Let me know if this helps you, and if you have any questions, you can always leave below. I love to hear from you, and have a wonderful day with lots of peace and lots of love.